let it be voiced. We're putting this out for the future generations, really.
So again, thank you, Elizabeth, also co-producer of Voices of Water. I do want to say, just looking at my screen, I know this is a strange and bizarre way that we're all connecting. Almost everybody on this call I've connected with personally in the past, and the personal connections I have with all of you, the work that you're doing, the inspiration that you brought me to take on this water protector tour work. I want to thank each one of you. I'm almost in tears right now because the people who are on this call are actually changing the broken narrative of the human condition right now, not just about water, but about so many things. So again, thank you all for taking a little bit of time to be on this call. I'd like to just start with a brief video. It's just a 1 minute to kind of preface some of what we're doing around the Water Protector Tour. And then again, I'm going to introduce everybody, and everyone will get a few moments to chime in and share a little bit about yourself. And here we go.
The Water Protector Tour 2021 is an alliance of individuals, businesses, decision makers, and members of Indigenous communities. The tour is dedicated to organizing, strategizing, and actualizing solutions around our bioregional issues like environmental toxins, mismanagement, and privatization. The tour will be focused on the Sacramento River Watershed, from the glacial waters of Mount Shasta to the unique estuary of the Sacramento River Delta. The tour starts on March 20th with World Water Day and goes throughout the year, featuring over a half dozen different forums, roundtables, and live streamed events. More information at waterprotectortour.org.
So just a little video that we're using to help promote the Water Protector Tour this year. And I do want to say I'm zooming in from Nevada City, and I want to do a land acknowledgement to the Nisinan tribe, that this is their ancestral territories. I am a friend and in communication with Shelley Covert, spokesperson for the tribe. They're not able to participate today, but have participated in past events. So I do want to do the protocol, because part of the work about doing water protector work is always acknowledging the original indigenous water protectors of this area and on any sort of territories that we might be. So I believe Marge Grow is on the line. Marge, are you there?
I'm here, brother. Matixus.
Thank you. I would like to, if you would possibly, would you be willing to start this meeting? I know you're calling in from the Sacramento area. Would you do us the honor of kind of starting our roundtable today?
Absolutely. Matixus Kuchi Haima. My name is Sister Who Walks with Bears. My colonized name is Marge Grow Eppard. I'm here in Miwok territory, which stems all the way from Yosemite through the Sacramento area, up through Nevada, and comes back around through Yolo County, which is Davis, and then swings around through some of the Bay Area to Marin County. And it's all my people and representing my ancestors from 7 generations back and the ones who are coming 7 generations ahead. So this is very important. And I thank you, Michael, for doing this and honoring us as sacred life givers who all carry our babies in sacred waters before they leave the unseen world and enter the seen world. Oh.
Thank you. I also want to thank you, Marge, for all the incredible work that you do, also around missing and murdered Indigenous women, which is another virus besides the obvious one. That's where many communities are suffering from. And also for your essential contribution to the Soul of the Delta documentary film, where we're trying to raise awareness about what's happening in our watershed. So again, thank you for honoring us, and very glad that you could be here. So I'd like to introduce the next person, and we're just going to have everyone just take maybe a minute or two to say who you are, maybe a quick synopsis of your past and what you're working on now. The next person has been working very closely with me over the last 3 years. I met him at Earth Day Sacramento, where I was trying to find people who were awake and willing to move into the idea of Earth Day into actual advocacy and activism. And he's worked with Bob McFarland and the Banner Guild. He's worked with the Crush Nestle Alliance, and he's also now my partner in the Sacramento River Watershed Project. So I'd like to welcome to the call Mr. Bob Sanders, calling in from Sacramento.
Hello, Bob. I just want to remind you, Bob, you are muted and we cannot hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot I'm muted, came into the program muted. Yeah, thank you and welcome everybody. And it's an honor and privilege and a pleasure to have you all here. And thank you, Michael, for hosting this and all the other work that you do and that we partner up in. And this is really vital and important work. And one of our things is to work really hard and educate and engage other people to get involved, not rely on or wait for other people to do it for them. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
And do you want to share just really quick about the Sacramento River Watershed Project, the focus of that?
Yeah, one of the focuses is on water safety and security in our bioregional watershed. And essentially we have 4 main areas: preservation, education, advocacy, and regeneration. And we're trying to come from the solution to the problems and deal with all the horrible effects regarding water issues and everything. And tired of hearing about all the meetings everybody's having and the world gatherings, and stuff, except for people who say are on here, who are actively working every day to try to mitigate those problems and deal with it and think towards the future in a worldwide and global sense of solutions. And also, one of the key things is that you can find out more information on our Sacramento, www.sacramentoriverwatershed.org website, and there's a whole host of information. And we're working closely with Alliance for Resilient Communities, or ARC, and also the Water Protector Tour.
Great. Bob, if you would be kind enough just to put the website put into the chat, if you could type
Oh,
that in.
absolutely. Sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So since we're in Sacramento, I guess we're going to start in Sacramento, and we'll travel north to Mount Shasta, where Vicki Gold is up there, which is the indigenous territories of the Winnemem Wintu, also the Pit River tribe and others. But I'd like to introduce another person that I had the honor of meeting, and she is no stranger to getting things done. She is an advocate and in her way legally dealing with many issues, an activist. And I'd like to introduce from the Sacramento area, OSHA Meserve, who has been extremely central to the effort in resisting the proposed water conveyance to Sacramento River tunnel project. So I'd like to welcome to our broadcast, OSHA Meserve. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning. I'm OSHA Meserve. I'm an environmental attorney in Sacramento, and I work on a lot of different things, but I want to say since about 2008, I've been part of the crew fighting against the Delta tunnels, or what is really the new version of the Peripheral Canal that a lot of folks on the call may remember, back from the 70s and 80s, that was defeated in 1982. So I've been working alongside a bunch of other people in the Sacramento area and actually throughout the state, fighting this state-driven plan to divert about half the flow of the Sacramento River, right as the Sacramento River flows into the Delta. And I know this is, a water protector tour for the entire length of the river. And I guess, I just want to make a shout out, and I know Barbara Bergen-Pearl will be talking a little bit about it as well, but how important the Delta, where 70% of the state drains into, is to this whole picture of, trying to protect our water resources and treat our environmental resources much better as we go forward for the sake of ourselves and the future generations. So, yeah, I think one of the challenges working on fighting the tunnels has been, we don't want to just be the people of no tunnel. We want to be the people of what do we actually want to promote. And I think we'll be hearing more about that today. But, and then I guess I just want to, as an attorney, I spend time in court, and sure, we can sue people and whatnot, but I think the way that you get things done is by working together and having initiatives that are positive and that bring about change. So I'm just excited to be part of the group, and thanks for introducing me.
Great. And thanks for, again, you're another tireless hero. I also want to acknowledge OSHA, who is helping us to actually co-produce the Soul of the Delta documentary film that will be including interviews with, I think now we're up to almost 40 different members of the community, including Marge Grow and also Melissa Tayaba from the Shingle Springs Miwok tribe, to all the various people who have the world-renowned farms, the pear farms, the wineries, all the different agriculture that's essential to California's economy and to the Delta. So I want to thank her for, wearing even more hats and helping to produce the Soul of the Delta film, which we'll see a little trailer in a few minutes. So going from there, I'd like to kind of move up a little bit to heading north. And I'd like to introduce from Nevada County, I have our next guest. I wanted to see if Payom Riles or Douglas D. Becker are on the call.
Hi, Michael. This is Poyom. I'm here on the call.
Great.
How's it going?
Good, good. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Payom Riles. Actually, Payom works with water in a very huge way. His company was involved in helping to, I guess, fix what was happening with the potential life-threatening situation up at Oroville Dam. He's also a father, husband. He's very busy, but I want to bring him on the call because he's also the co-founder and the host of the Source Directory, which is our bioregional network. We're not using YouTube or Facebook or other avenues. What we're doing over the last 4 years now, we've created our own regional resource network for every individual and business and organization that's sustainable and regenerative. And it's a great resource. And now we have a member chat where we can talk like we're talking now between ourselves without even having to use Zoom or other platforms. I'll put the link up as Payom is talking, but I'd like to welcome Mr. Payom Riles.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for hosting this, and thanks everybody for coming. Yes, I'm a water resources engineer, hydrologist. Been working with water professionally for a while. Started landscaping and an interest in permaculture. Certified permaculture designer, and I'm on the board of directors for the Sierra Streams Institute, which is an organization dedicated to watershed health, located here in Nevada County and the Yuba watershed. We do work not only in the Yuba watershed, but outside the watershed, focused on the health of the watershed and all the people in it, human and non-human people. Michael and I started the source directory as a regenerative directory to build the resilience of the Sacramento River region. The whole idea is to highlight and connect, promote the people within the Sacramento River watershed who are living life in a regenerative way. We all need to recognize none of us is perfect. Nobody's the epitome ideal of regenerative lifestyle, but we want to highlight what we can. We want to highlight things that people are doing. And so all of you who are located in the watershed, we'd love to have you in the directory. I'm happy to work with you to get your events posted or information about what you're doing, updates about what you're doing. You can have a fixed URL that you can point people to if you want to have a link to a blog article or something like that you want to be able to point people to. I can help you get something like that set up. Part of the reason why we focus on the source, we called it the source directory, focuses on water in a way, even though there are many things in the directory that maybe aren't initially what you might think of as water, whether it's alternative health practitioners or sustainable builders. Because living in a regenerative way, it all comes back to water. It all comes back to the bioregion and how healthy the bioregion is. And so living in that way, we're doing that in order to support the whole bioregion together. Because unless we do it together, how can we succeed? So I'd encourage all of you to either go and sign up as a community member. You can reach out to me, contact me directly. You could, at the very bottom of the page, there's a contact us link I can get that information if you want to ask a question. I'm listed there in the directory. You can reach out to me through my listing. One thing that I'd really like to focus on in this next year is providing a space for all of the indigenous communities within the watershed to have a listing in the directory, a place where they can share events and links. I know there are some networks available to indigenous communities as far as having web presence. And I know some communities are more funded and facilitated than others in terms of doing that. But I want to make sure that we can offer that. There are paid listings for the directory. That's mostly to just support our costs for maintaining and upkeep, building our team. The more team members that we can support in running the directory, the more we can offer to you. And we've made a commitment to, you know, returning profit that we make from the directory to projects within the watershed that help make the watershed more regenerative. So really the goal is to have this be a self-sustaining tool that will continue to support the watershed as it grows and matures and becomes, you know, more and more useful over time. The more listings there are, the more useful it is to people. They can go, hey, I'm curious about how do I get a car around here that's, you know, going to be supportive of the watershed? You know, what does that even mean? How do I get around? How do I grow a garden that's supportive of the watershed? How do I, you know, you could go on and on. And I'd be happy to talk to any of you about it. So you can come and find me. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Payom, for again, thanks, Payom, for all the work that you're doing, not just with the source directory, but your water work and as a permaculture designer. We're going to have someone who's been working with Payom over the last 6 months. In a few minutes, Douglas DeBecker will be joining us, but let's kind of continue to travel on. The next person I'd like to introduce is, I believe she's on the call right now, is Miss Evelyn Saltero. Evelyn has an organization called All About Wells. Not only does she do water testing, but she does a lot of work around wells in Nevada County and the region. And recently, when water during the Jones Bar fire here in Nevada County, hundreds, thousands of gallons of fire retardant were sprayed all over the fire in the area. And as many of us know, fire retardants can be extremely toxic and hazardous. And in the process of that happening, they also sprayed in Penn Valley, our local water processing plant. So as we all know, there's a very anemic and broken connection between a lot of the people in local, state and federal government and the connectivity on the ground with communities and with emergency responders, first responders. So I know Evelyn got really called to another level of activism. She's been an educator and working with wells for years, but I'd like to invite to the conversation Miss Evelyn Saltero, if you are here.
I am, Michael. Thank you. And welcome. I am so honored to be here. Let me catch my breath. I'm so honored to be here. I truly embrace groundwater as one of our sisters. It was many years ago that I moved onto this piece of property and became a steward of this 10 acres here in Penn Valley, California. I live in the Woods Creek watershed with a local tributary called the Keystone Ravine that flows into the Yuba River. And as we know, the Yuba River flows into the Feather River, which flows into the Sacramento River, which flows into the Bay Delta, which is behind me. And I'm so honored to be here to represent water and to support and protect our groundwater. And thank you again, Michael, for introducing me in terms of my current dealings. Where I start is myself, when I moved onto this property, I realized I lived with a low producing well. I took myself back to school to begin to understand how my well received its water. I figured if I could learn how my well was recharged, I could then begin to support the groundwater that I pulled out of the ground to shower and to water my horses. In doing so, I realized I took myself back to school and earned my degree in the geosciences. I designed and implemented a local research project here to understand the connection between surface water and groundwater. And once I graduated, I realized that not only did I have these low producing well concerns, our entire county was potentially in an imminent groundwater withdrawal. And truly, we have experienced extended years of dryness in this state, which to me is a normal ebb and flow. But to get back to my work, I began my business All About Wells to help people support their well systems, but also to begin having the conversation individual by individual, to help them understand that they actually live with their well versus on their well. And in the years that I've been running my business, I've began to see the conversation shift. I hear people now speaking about living with their well versus on their well. So to me, to have the conversation at the grassroots level, to start each and individual at the individual level where people live with well systems, and help them understand that they can support and protect their groundwater by understanding how their well performs, how they demand that groundwater, and then how they can encourage groundwater production through land management, reducing compaction, reducing runoff, encouraging infiltration. And all of these things keep me in my day job so that I can do, as Michael suggested, the research out there that needs to be done. So when I realized that there was a potential groundwater problem, groundwater quality issue with the amount of fire retardant that was sprayed here in our neighborhood, I, at the grassroots level, put together a study. I was unable to gain funding, but I'm keeping that alive and hoping to get grant funding for our next fire that comes in. And the point would be to change policy at the ground level, so that we're working intimately to reduce our forest fuels. And by doing so, we're groundwater wise and we're forest safe. We're forest fire safe. So again, I'm grateful to be here in collaboration with everybody, and I'm so honored to be part of this conversation.
Great. Thank you, Evelyn. And I want to thank Evelyn for also coming up and testing the water, and for all her advisorship on the 3 properties that I steward at the top of the Bear River Watershed at the top of Ubet Road. We have a total of 20 acres there that we're going to be opening up this summer, educating people about no-till permaculture gardening. We're doing also cover crops and native plant habitat restoration. We're also introducing with Toro Rocha various pollinators, because we know through the use of herbicides and pesticides that our pollinators are being decimated. And we're opening up a whole retreat and school up at the property over the next, well, definitely within the next year. And that's called the Whispering Pines Farm, School, and Retreat. So that's something that we're doing. We're not just talking about these things, but we're actually putting them into walking our talk and action. So again, I want to thank Evelyn for coming up and helping with the water testing and the science that it takes to help us be compliant with Nevada County. So thank you so much. So we're going to stay in Nevada County for a moment. This is someone who I just met recently, and I met him I was actually at the afternoon deli eating a veggie burger with someone else who's on the phone call, KT Harrison, and started to, my ears, I try not to, eavesdrop, but I could hear the amazing work that this person was doing, delivering thousands of pounds of food up into the Klamath region to the indigenous communities there. Well, being someone who is an advocate and an activist around community resilience, we started to have a conversation, and then I found out even more about him, and not only that he abides out the Nevada County Airport, but he also is developing technologies, which he may or may not be able to divulge on this call, but I'd like to introduce to the call Mr. Bruce Marlowe. So welcome, Bruce.
Hello, welcome. Happy to participate in today's event, and I come from a much different background than most everybody on this call. I live up at the Nevada County Airport. I actually live on the airport. And so I've been here about 20 years, came out of the Bay Area, and I spent my career servicing and taking care of nuclear power plants, which is hugely unpopular in California. So the work I did was to keep them safe. So I'm pretty proud of the work I've done over the years, but about 2006, I got hooked on water. And believe it or not, I was working with a group of people who were trying to build a nuclear power plant in Fresno, and they wanted to use that power plant energy, the thermal energy and the electrical energy, to clean water in the valley.
Bruce, your volume could be a little louder. I don't know if you could speak up or move a hair closer, please.
Yeah, somebody the other day mentioned that. Can you hear me now? Better? Yeah, I can talk loud, believe it. I always try to use my inside voice. So I'm not, you know, if I can. So can you hear me better? It's good? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. So anyway, headed to where I was going is I kind of learned about water working with a group of people who wanted to build a nuclear power plant in Fresno. And I asked one day, well, what water do you want to clean in the valley? And then I started learning all about water, and I got hooked on it. I got hooked on why water was so important, you know, and though I've always appreciated water, I never really understood it or paid much attention to it, like most people. It comes out of the tap, you drink some of it, you put it on your yard, and it's water, it just shows up. Well, far from the truth is what that is. It's life. You know, without it, we don't hydrate, we don't grow food. We lived 1 million years on this planet without cell phones and electricity and everything else. We never lived a day here without water. Clean water, for that matter. Water that you can use that doesn't hurt you. So we've managed to pollute a lot of water since we've been here in many, many different ways, including salts. So in the Central Valley of California, there's about 200 million tons of salt on the land, and about 20 million tons of salt goes onto the land in the Central Valley every year from irrigation. And of course, the valley itself inherently has a lot of salt because it used to be the bay. If you look at California, the water from the south flows to the bay. The water from the north flows to the bay. It's this big funnel. If you go to 50,000 feet, you look at the shape of the bay, make it bigger, and it looks just like the Central Valley, where the ocean used to come up to the Sierra foothills. And so the bay is just leftover receding of the water that was in the valley at one time. So there's a lot of places and there's a lot of water that's contaminated with salts, groundwater primarily. And of course, we irrigate with water that has salts on it. Not all of our rivers are pure and clean. When they come out of the hills, some of them are a little bit salty just from the nature of the way the system works. So I started looking into more about what salts we needed to clean out of the water, and teamed up with another group of guys while I was still working on taking care of nuclear power plants. And we built a thermal solar desalination plant in the Central Valley using a big thermal trough and a multi-effect distillation system. And we were using it to pull drainage water, agricultural drainage water out and clean it to a zero liquid discharge, with the idea that we could recycle the salts. I worked with some folks up at the Colorado School of Mines, where we were practicing and working with taking salts and turning it into products like furniture or roads or buildings. I mean, you could actually build a community with salts and polymers, natural polymers. So a bit of work went up there with the idea that we could take the salt to a zero liquid discharge or a powder and use that powder to build community. Take water, clean it so you can use it, and take that byproduct and build your community with it. So I had a pretty good vision there, and we built a demonstration plant. It was covered by National Geographic and PBS, and was a bit of a splurge for a while on there. And we were getting ready to build a excuse me, a $30 million larger plant that was going to clean about 2,500 acre feet of water, which is not very much, but it was going to be a bigger pilot plant. And then the water district got in trouble with the federal government, and the project got shut down. And throughout that process, I learned a lot about salts. There's a CV Salts is an organization in California And most of the water that I've been dealing with is south of the Delta. I mean, I live north of the Delta, but everything that I've been working on is south of the Delta, which is kind of a different world completely. And so while I was working to solve that issue and learn more about salts and try to build the plant, because unfortunately, desalination is expensive and it uses a lot of energy. There's a good way to integrate it all. You can integrate it into using bipartic heat to warm greenhouses, and there's all kinds of ways you can optimize something like we were creating. But at the end of the day, it's expensive, and people expect water to be free, or fairly free, because it comes from the earth, and we should be able to use it as we need. But unfortunately, it's expensive to clean it, and there's a lot to clean in California. If in fact we don't do something in the Central Valley of California, in 100 years, you won't farm on it at all, like they do today, anyway, because it'll be too salty. So something important to understand is that in California, in the valley itself, up here in the foothills, it's a little bit different. My well's at 3,200 feet, and I don't go into an aquifer. I go into a crevasse of water that's draining to the valley underground, which sometimes takes a couple hundred years to get there, depending on how it flows. So there's 3 aquifers, and the hydrology guy on this call can straighten me out, because I'm not a hydrologist, okay? I'm just a high school graduate who likes to learn. And so there's 3 aquifers. There's the upper level aquifer, which sits above the Corcoran clay. We have 515 of those alluvial aquifers in California. It's like a glass. You could fill it full of sand and gravel and still pour water in it. It's a great place to put water. It usually goes in and comes out pretty clean. Below the Corcoran clay, there's another aquifer, the mid-level aquifer, and that's the one that causes subsidence when they drill wells down below the Corcoran clay, and they start pulling water from that groundwater from that area. The Corcoran clay sags. The heavy alluvial aquifer pushes it down, and you can never recover it. And then there's a third aquifer, which is down deep, 5,000 feet or so. That's where the oil and gas guys go, because when they pull oil out of the ground, they get, a gallon or a barrel of oil for 9 barrels of water, which, by the way, ends up being a little bit salty, which they then re-inject back into the ground. It's a horrible process, actually. So anyway, as I'm working on this project, I need some water that I can use to blend with this expensive water, so that I can make this plant work financially. So I'm looking to buy some water. So I meet a guy who owns a big ranch near Los Banos, California, and he has water to sell. So in my effort to understand, how he could sell that water and where that water came from and how that water got there, I started down an adventure, and I built an interactive map that shows all the rivers and lakes and everything around it, and how the water goes to this location, how the water comes out of this location, what kind of dirt and land it was. And I became very addicted again to something relative to water, which is underground water storage, replenishing the aquifers and being smart about how you do it and how that actually really works. And so I've been working with that project now for the last 4 years, which is I've done a lot of hydrology work out there, a lot of political work, met with a lot of government agencies, and learning about how to do it. Because in California, we have 10 times the capacity to store water underground as we do of all the above ground design capacity, not actual capacity, but design capacity of every reservoir in the state. And like somebody mentioned earlier, if the ground is real hard and impermeable, the water just sheds off and drags a few contaminants with it, when we could start replenishing some of these underground aquifers that we've been pulling water from crazy like for a long time.
Great, Bruce.
Yes,
Bruce,
sir.
we have 30 people on the call, and I have like another 15 introductions. So we're going to talk about some issues and solutions towards the last half hour of the call. So again, would you like to just say anything real quick before we go on to our next presenter?
I'm good.
Great, thank you so much. So what I would like to do right now is I wanted, since we've been talking about California's water, just real quick, it's a 1-minute video. We're gonna do a little visual stimulus change, and then we're gonna come back to the call. But I wanna just share a little 1-minute trailer of the Soul of the Delta film, which many of the people who are on this call actually are in, and then we'll be back with more introductions. So thank you everyone for taking some of your precious and sacred time to share in our watershed about what we're all doing and how we can be more effective and connect. So this is the Soul of the Delta trailer. Are you on the call?
I'd rather have that. I'd rather have that.
Are you on the call?
Yeah. I'm looking for the link.
You got to go to the home page and click on watch broadcast and then go to Sacramento River Watershed at 11.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little glimpse to the film that, again, we've been working on over the last year. And again, big props to many of you on the call. And of course, again, to Ocean Reserve for helping to facilitate almost 40 interviews. And Bob Saunders for actually coming along and helping to organize all the data on that. So at this point, I'd like to move a little bit out of Nevada County. This is a gentleman who is also helps to run KFOI radio station up in Redding. He does a lot of things. I don't think we have time to actually even talk about all the things he's been doing with support of indigenous communities out in the Big Mountain area, broadcaster, activist, advocate, and helping us with PSAs for the event. He also has a series on Pacifica Radio, same station as Amy Goodman. I'd like to welcome to the show and now becoming really a good friend. And actually him and Bob are Soul Communications, which is our nonprofit fiscal sponsor for this year of Water Protector Tour. I'd like to welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Mauro Oliveria. So welcome.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
No, you could be louder.
Okay, how's that? Is that better? I'm trying to go through this. Not working.
Let's do this. There seems to be a microphone issue. If we could come back to you, that would be great. So it looks like I want to interview before we move tomorrow. There's something with the microphone volume. It might be in your preferences. Really quick, he's actually at work right now, but another person who's been working with Priyom Riles on the source directory. He has his own organization working with people around the world in Puerto Rico and in Africa and in India. He's also quite the Swami himself. And he has his own organization working with different types of indigenous and traditional medicines. We're going to welcome, and we're going to try to stop you to have moving for the 1 or 2 moments. It's a little distracted. We're going to welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Douglas D. Becker. So welcome. Unmute.
Thanks for letting me jump on here on my break. Yeah, we're really excited to activate the source directory in other areas. It's one of the main issues that most people are having trying to do a lot of this type of good work is networking and working together with people. And the source directory is allowing that to happen really quickly. We have, for instance, in Puerto Rico, there's 200 farms they've been trying to get together to work together. And they're hopefully going to be activating in the source directory there, which should almost immediately bring everyone together. So we're really excited about that. Anything else?
Douglas, really quick, could you tell people about the work you're doing with, because part of community resilience has to do with medicine? And then we're going to try to go back tomorrow here.
Sure. So we're doing a lot of effort trying to make indigenous medicine more available through creating online courses and through bringing different elders and different medicine systems together, ultimately, eventually to have an on-site institute. And this is happening right now. It's slowed down quite a bit because of COVID, but so we've been doing some hours of recording different traditions. We have a Unani tradition, the traditional Egyptian Greek medicine. We have Ayurveda, we have Siddha medicine, the original indigenous system of India of medicine. We have Soa Rigpa, which is Tibetan medicine. We have as well, missing one, Chinese medicine. Oh, the African. We have a person doing some presentations on African medicine too, who will be with us here during the Voices of Water weekend event. So yeah, we're excited about that. It's our effort is to try to keep the systems intact and not just make a big soup that's mixed with a bunch of different traditions, but to create a place where different traditions intact in their in their original form can be accessed, and then eventually through that bring them to the students of those traditions to work together, and then from that create clinical studies that can be presented to the international medical community. And our website is phalamritum.org. That's PHALAM, like Mary.
I will say this, Douglas, I'm going to invite
Yes.
everyone to put their own links and websites in the chat. If anyone's interested in connecting
Excellent.
with anybody, we're
Thank you.
going to really fast track this because I do want to get to issues and solutions at the end. So Mauro, is your mic working a little better?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I will try to keep this really brief and related to water. I come from Soul Communications, 24-year nonprofit that we started working with the Navajo and Hopi, bringing supplies to the Big Mountain Resistance. And now we work with the Pitt River and still with the Navajo and the Hopi. And I learned about water sun dancing. So I had plenty of time, 16 years of the ceremony, to think about this. And in fact, it is in the dances that my inspiration came, my desperation came. And one thing that I had a chance to do was think this all through. Where are we headed with the eyes of realism? And when I hear things like we have 2050, 2030, 100 years from now, those things, they just tear my mind apart, because it's debatable whether we have another day to make a difference. And when scientists like James Hansen came forward in 2006 and 4, and back in the 80s and back in 1960s, even scientists were warning us that we were reaching a point. So right now, I produce a show called The Extinction Diaries, and I've been following extinction since the 1990s. And that is the bed we lay in. All the other activism that we do are the sheets, the pillowcases, and the room around it. And so when we don't look at extinctions, we don't know the reality. And I can tell by the way our government, the last 4 and the 4 that we're looking at now, we're not even close to dealing with the issues. The fact that we even have a military in other countries tells me we're not dealing with the issues. I think you all know what I'm talking about. If we don't unify quickly, it won't matter what our rivers, streams, and creeks are doing, because the ocean itself is acidifying at a rate that's just unbelievable. And trust me, I know the extinctions inside and out, and we are accelerating at a speed that is beyond even what they believe happened in the 5 other great extinctions. So, for the whole time that I've been an activist, it's been direct action, and, trying to shut down Nestle's for a day with Bob and others, and putting my own kids in tree sit positions to block forest deforestation. And it is direct action that's going to make the difference. But if we don't have a revolution on this issue, and it's always been about peace, but eventually it won't be about peace if we don't achieve it with peace. It's not going to be about peace. In the end, our grandchildren, if they get that far, or our children at least, are going to have to fight it out to keep this planet. So we have to come to terms with what is really the baseline. Where are we really? And, you know, World Water Day celebrations and ceremony and prayers, yes, absolutely, 100%. But the minute we step out of that, we need to step into direct action. And so I'm here listening today, and hopefully, you know, in the future, we can all come together for some direct action and try to turn this around. Thank you. And thank you, Michael, for putting this together, Marge and everybody. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mauro, for all the work that you do. And again, a big shout out to KFOI Radio. Again, I want to encourage everyone right now, please put in the chat your website, pertinent information, radio stations, your media channels. And again, I want to encourage people I really want to start all of us being able to engage directly through the source directory. I think by the end of this year, as far as doing more and more emails, Facebook Messenger, Signal, Telegram, and Zooms, which are also recorded and monitored, that we have to absolutely move to our own platform. And part of doing that is creating here at the hub in Nevada City, the Nevada County Resilience Hub, we just put in a server and we're creating our own bioregional watershed-based media network, which will have several shows that'll be carried on that, including the Golden Road TV show, including Extinction Diaries from Mauro, and other shows, and including shows from our next guest. He's the publisher of Lotus Guide magazine with his wife, Dara. He was actually out of the area, and I believe in Texas, during the Paradise Fire, which he lives in Magalia, which is literally yards, if not maybe a mile away from the fire line in Paradise. Paradise has become still a toxic remediation nightmare. It'll take years to clean up because of all the microplastic burn, the tires, the household products, the cleaning chemicals, the solvents, all of the all the toxic landscaping materials. And of course, here in the Sierras, we still suffer from the nightmare of the gold rush legacy from 150 years ago. So a lot of mines were exposed, a lot of mercury that was stored in various locations, not even tracked or known, was released into the environment. And of course, that area flows into many different rivers, which eventually all makes it to the Sacramento River. And of course, I think it's so pertinent, all of us here in our watershed, because Sacramento, it means divine. And I know there's many other indigenous and traditional names, but I'd like to welcome to the show right now, who also has his weekly show and podcast, spiritual activist, Mr. Rahasia Poe.
Thank you, Michael. I'm glad to be here. And thank you so much for having me on. I feel really humbled by seeing who I'm surrounded by right now. If this was a battlefield, I'm surrounded by soldiers right now that are really going out and doing the direct fight in so many different ways. And I've always looked at myself as more of maybe a messenger or a scout. I go out beyond the battlefield and get a wider perspective and bring it back, because that helps me when I'm interviewing people. Because one thing I've found out, life is fractal. If you can have a few foundational starting points, you can always use that as a touchstone to take the next step. And I think we're at a point right now where we're at a tipping point on so many levels. And I think this is causing a lot of psychic stress, and I can see it. There's a planetary awakening. You can see it in the way that new information is bubbling to the surface. And I think to use I won't go into the imaginary cells because most people know about that, but I think we are at the tail end of the caterpillar regime, which is holding on tight to its pattern, but it can't. There's too many imaginal cells that hold the pattern of what we can become. In that case, it's a butterfly. In our case, we don't know, but it's buried inside of us. We have that DNA pattern locked up inside of us, and I can see it coming forth. And it almost reminds me, an analogy that came to me once as I was waking up from a dream is when we are in a dream state, where our consciousness is resonating with that dream. And it makes total sense. You know, elephants can fly, it doesn't matter, because we're resonating with that reality. But as our consciousness starts rising higher and higher to a more of an awakening state, the dream no longer makes sense and it starts falling apart. And I think that that's what we're watching on our planet right now. We're seeing that so much has been going on for millennia, really, but right now it's not making sense. And it's because we're waking from the dream to a new reality. And as we awaken to this new reality, we're going to find new information and new ways of seeing things. And I think we've reached a point where we no longer have the luxury of talking about it, just talking. That's the reason I'm really humbled by people like Susie Lawing and Jim Brobeck. These people have been doing this for years and years and years. And like I say, I have a hard time focusing on one thing. I have so many things I'm looking at human trafficking and the extinction level that we're at, all of these things, which are important, but it's really important to have people that can really hone in and drill down and dissect and unpack some of these problems, because that in itself is really empowering. And I think if I had to start anywhere in this conversation, it would be with regenerative agriculture, because I think regenerative agriculture is a basic platform we can start with, not to mention the fact that corporate traditional farming is one of the big polluters of water. But once you can start from regenerative agriculture, you can actually take that home to your individual life, which I'm doing. I have 3 acres. We're getting a couple of goats, chickens, and a garden. We're doing regenerative agriculture. And I'm even going out into the forest and finding ways to revitalize the soil and doing my best with my immediate environment. Because when I go out into the larger community and talking to people like yourself, for instance, that are doing so much, I want to be walking my talk, for one, but this is how it works. We do our best to take our world and make it a better place from the place that we're at. And it always comes back to, I was interviewing Dr. Emoto one time, Hidden Messages in Water, and he said, 2 of the best emotions to have with water is love and gratitude. And I think that's important to keep in mind in this day and age, because if we can have love and gratitude in our hearts, we can always find something to be grateful for. No matter how bad things are, we can find something. If we can have those 2 emotions, if that can affect a glass of water, imagine what it can do to our body, since we are so much water inside of ourselves. And I think I'll leave it at that, because you have a lot of really informative people here. It's amazing to see who's coming on. I think I'm going to leave that to them. And it's just a pleasure being here and sharing this experience with all of you. You're muted, Michael.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank you for coming on at this time. We're sending love to Dara. You have the Lotus Guide Center, which is now in the heart of a skeleton town once known as Paradise. You have your Lotus Guide magazine. If you could please put those links up so people could follow that. And I want to thank you for every time you publish the magazine, giving the Alliance for Resilient Communities and Water Protector Tour bandwidth to reach more people. So thank you for all that you do. So we're going to, since you mentioned it, we're going to go over in a minute to Susie Lawing and Jim Brobeck, who are your neighbors there. But before we do that, we're going to go a little bit higher up into the high Sierras. I think he's come out of his monk cave to participate in the phone call. Our next guest is actually the co-producer of the Green Festival, which, if you're familiar with, was actually the largest purely green, zero waste environmental festival, at least in North America, possibly the world. And there he is. And he's been on TED Talks. He's an absolute doer, walking his talk with thousands of devotees who love to hear what he has to say. We're going to welcome to the broadcast Mr. Kevin Danaher. So welcome.
Hey, Kevin, please unmute for us.
Duh. Okay, there shows my low IQ right away. I'll show my respect for everybody by being as brief as possible. For me, this is very personal because I grew up on the Ramapo River. And we could drink that water. We would swim in it and drink it, and you could skate on it when it froze in the winter. You could skate in one direction for a mile. That river now, you wouldn't go in that river because Ford Motor Company and some other factories were built upriver and just destroyed that river. So this is really deep for me. It's the most precious resource on our planet. A couple resources, you should check out unwater.org. It's the UN produces every year a global water survey. A really good book that I want to promote is this Water Matters book. They go through every issue regarding water and show what we need to do to save the water on our planet. We are the water planet. Here in Plumas County, people don't know about Plumas County, but you folks, I trust you're not corporate types that are going to come in and rape the place. Plumas County, Plumas means feathers in Spanish, right? Because one of the first Spanish explorers saw feathers floating in the river, named it the Feathers River, Plumas, which raises the issue of how people don't know what Spanish names mean, like Placer County. It's placer, pleasure. What was happening in Placer County that they named it Pleasure County? Use your imagination. I want to suggest people check out on TED.com a presentation by James Balog, B-A-L-O-G. James Balog was a National Geographic photographer who figured out how to set up time-lapse cameras at all the major glaciers. In his presentation on TED.com, he shows you 3 years of glacial melt in 30 seconds. And you see these massive half-mile-long blocks of ice flowing to the ocean. So these people who don't understand what's going to happen, ocean levels, when all the ice on the planet melts, it raises ocean levels over 200 feet. If you go around and ask people, how high are ocean levels going to go? They'll say 5 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. It's over 200 feet. Major city, Florida. Florida goes away completely. Not just some beaches in Miami. The whole state goes away. And what people say when I raise this fact to people, they go, oh, well, that's off in the future. Oh, so you're saying let's be bad investors. So Plumas County, we're really lucky. The boundary of Plumas County was drawn around the 3 branches of the Feather River. And Plumas County is bigger than Yosemite. It's bigger than Yellowstone. We have more plant species than those 2 famous places. We have more nesting bird species. It's just this amazing place. It's huge. And there's only 20,000 people in the whole county. So it's just this amazing place. One of the things that I'm pushing up here is we should have a 500-year plan for Plumas County. We could be the first county in the whole country for having a 500-year plan, because that's 7 generations. And that would give us some sense of like, whoa, what do we need to do to protect human life? And because if you go out at 500 years and you work back from there, you'll come up with different ideas than if you start at the present date and work forward thinking of your life or your children's lives or your grandchildren. We have to think of our grandchildren's 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 grandchildren to really be good ancestors. So one of the things I've found useful in doing, I've been an educator all my life, high school and college, is to say to people, look, contrast the way the world is which is awful, plastic in the ocean, climate change, all these terrible things going on, with the way things could be. And if you look at regenerative agriculture and permaculture and renewable energy and green building science, there's all this amazing stuff coming online, and it's all accelerating. If you look at the growth in renewable energy or green building or regenerative organic agriculture, it's all growing rapidly. So when you get people to realize that they don't have to live in the world that is, they can live in the world that could be, it unleashes spiritual energy. That's probably the best renewable energy, spiritual energy that gets you pumped up for activism. And it makes us then able to recruit people. And I'll end with this. It's the Titanic analogy. The Titanic is sinking. The Titanic in this case is corporate, capitalist, imperialist, extractive economic model, pretending the world has endless resources that we can just using and throwing them away when there is no away. That boat is we have possibility politics. We can run with signs saying this boat sucks. And don't get me wrong, I've done plenty of that protesting myself. The alternative is to create the alternative boat, a solar-powered, wind-powered boat, party on deck, scantily clad people with drinks in their hand, dancing to cool music. We pull up alongside the Titanic and people will jump willingly to our new boat. Because if you're going around saying this boat sucks, the implicit message to people is you're stupid. You're on a stupid boat and you don't understand. But us smart people will lead. No, that's not a good way to recruit people. So let's appeal on that emotional level of there's a better way we can organize human society. Let's move forward. Let's build that alternative boat and recruit a majority of people to creating a different world, a world of sustainability and love for all life, all living things. Thanks very much. Blessings.
Great. Kevin, thank you so much for taking some time. And again, I want to encourage people to go check out some of Kevin's TED Talks. Again, he's, I would actually say one of my strongest advisors, and I always lean into talking and conversating with him about just his insights and his wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much, Kevin, for taking some time. I'd like to do this. We're going to go to Jim Brobeck and Susie in a second. I want to just take a little, just give everyone a little chance to stretch. I know it's intense looking at a screen for this amount of time, and I'm going to play a video. This next video is actually called Old Mother Sea. It's an original piece of music by a performer, Billy Bensing, who lives in Nevada County. And it's accompanied by a film by Mr. Lou Casabianca, who will be talking at the later part of this broadcast about his Water Protector magazine that he's been putting together with Alliance for Resilient Communities. But I just want to take a moment so everyone can drop in to the, part of Voices of Water is there's so many perspectives from the indigenous, the cultural, the spiritual, the scientific, the environmental. But I want to invite everyone just to enjoy this video and kind of drop into our hearts a little bit as we, get glimpses of what's happening with Old Mother Sea all the way around the world. So we'll be back in just another minute with Jim Brobeck and Susie Long. Thanks for everyone being here. And I'd say I hope you enjoy the video, but it's actually kind of sad. So we'll talk in a moment.
Michael, I recommend you restart it and make sure you click the box for share sound. So just unshare screen and then share screen again.
Okay.
And then click the box in the bottom left corner.
Share screen or mute?
So now share screen and then it'll bring up a window.
Okay.
And then it should show you
the quick time player. Oh, share sound. Thank you.
Share sound and then share that. There you go.
Thank you. I just want to introduce everyone to the wizard behind the curtain. If you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, I want to thank Basil from D Studio and Seeds, which is an alternative currency. I want to thank Basil Childish for helping to make today possible. So let's all send Brother Basil some love. So here we go. Old Mother C.
Old Mother Sea has blessed on you. Over the great Missouri, she told of the world which is bigger and greater beyond you can see. She said, taken so much from me over the years, given you much of your well. Well, something's happened and I feel a slackening of my great strength. Can't treat me like my poor children upstream. Careful, destroy nature, and you can't destroy me. There comes a day I will no longer live. The great waves will wash you away. They plead for mercy. Did my children get mercy in there? On the can't treat me like my boy children street. Careful with old mother sea. Science of nature, and you can't destroy nature, and you can't destroy me. There comes a day I will no longer lay. Great rains will wash you away. They plead for mercy. Did my children get mercy? And then someday.
we're back. So yeah, again, I want to thank Lou, who will be coming on towards the end of the call. So I want to go over now to our next presenter. While I wipe the tears from my eyes. He's another resident of the Butte County and Plumas County area and in Reading, and he does a lot of work. He's also works with Peggy Rebowl and the annual Whole Earth Festival that usually occurs in Reading as a way to bring a lot of the environmental community together. We're going to introduce Mr. Jim Brobeck. So welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for inviting me. I am a water drinker. I use water to cook and to clean. I use it to water my summer garden. I'm a body surfer. I'm a creek swimmer. My son and I manage a 40-acre forest in the Big Chico Creek Sacramento River Watershed, using cutting tools and fire to manage the forest. I'm a water policy analyst for Aqua Alliance, and I represent the environmental community on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act Groundwater Sustainability Agency VINA Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Thanks for inviting me. I look forward to participating.
Great. Thank you, Jim. I know you're really busy. I know we've talked a few times, and it's really great. And you're such a foundational piece to this conversation and the work that we're all going to be connecting on and doing in the future. So thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing a little bit today.
You're welcome.
And I would encourage anyone, if again, please be posting your contacts and websites and links on the window. And we're going to ask one of your neighbors to come on the call. She actually saw, and this is how connectivity works. She saw the article in the Lotus Guide magazine that we posted about Water Protector Tour. She called me up. We had a conversation, and she is friends with Jim Brobeck, who I've been reaching out to and ping-ponging conversations over the past, and said, you have to have Jim involved in this. So we want to welcome to our broadcast one of your neighbors, Susie Long. So welcome, Susie.
Susie, please unmute for us. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I live in the mountains, and Jimmy was a neighbor. And I have been doing what they now call permaculture for almost 50 years. I was part of living in Berkeley until I moved to the mountains and really heard what they said in the 60s, and I aligned with it, drop out of the establishment and get back to the land. Well, I don't know what happened, but a lot of people, well, I do know what happened. They killed all our heroes, back in the 60s, 70s, Kennedy, Martin Luther King, all those guys. Wow, we were so excited about changing the world. And so eventually, after having 4 children and living in the state of Washington, where it rains a lot, we moved back to California and bought a piece of land where we could grow our food. And I've been doing that. And I'm still doing that after 48 years. And it's a happy life. It's a really good life. I don't understand why more people don't live on the land. I know it's real expensive to buy land now, and we were lucky enough to be able to afford it back in the 70s. But there's a need now for people my age that did drop out and are back on the land, and we need some help now. And so I would like to promote more apprentice programs like the Woofers, willing workers on organic farms. And I know there's a special connection when you grow your own food It could be the rhythm of the earth that then is the rhythm of us more accurately when we grow our own food organically and care for the earth. I feel there's a disconnect in commercial food, and maybe that's why I feel our culture is hypnotized. But there's many of us that have stepped out into a brave new world. And I've been into spirituality most of my adult life, and it led to my studying alchemy. And alchemy is this transformation of energy. And for me, it was I wanted to go from war to peace. Why do we have this stupid thing called war? And got into realizing why we had it, so that the elite and the real money people could make more money and control the world. And so there's a lot of changes that we need to make on the planet. And my way of transforming the energy on the planet, because we've almost gone beyond the physical and what we can do physically and what we can do even with only our minds. And that is to connect with our heart. We need to use the greatest of all powers, which is love. We need to learn what the 9 million witches and druids that were killed in the Middle Ages knew. They knew how to work with the earth, the elements, the earth, the air, the fire, and the water. And the fifth element is love. And in love, there's earth, air, fire, and water. So love's a shortcut. Love's our answer. Hey, we just have to be happy and have fun. Besides doing everything that everybody's doing, we're uniting. And so for those of us that choose to live a more simple life, get your hands in the dirt. That's where I got my knowledge. I didn't get it from reading books. I didn't get it. I got it from just being in the earth. So I encourage you to, if you don't grow something that you eat, get yourself a parsley plant, put it in a pot, have a relationship with it, put that gorgeous water in it, and then eat it. Even if you eat just a leaf a week, have a relation with the earth like that. It's real.
And Susie,
everything's full of water.
Susie, we have about 30 seconds left. Could you just tell us quickly about your project, that your land and how you're opening that up for some water protector events, and just really quickly what that is?
Well, I run a retreat center at my place, and so my place is available. I will put it on chat. It's called Enchanted Ridge, and it's under Hip Camp. If you want to see pictures, it's under Hip Camp, and I will post that. And our program has been Create a Village. As agriculturalists and farmers, we have seen big cities don't work. They cause a lot of pollution. They cause crime. They're just not that great. And being intimate, being with our friends and our family. So anyway, we also have snow 3 times in the last week, which we hardly ever have had in March. We know there's changes. And my alchemy teacher actually said, things like Fukushima, if we can unite together in love and get our focus together, we can clean up things like that like nothing. So I don't see that we can do it any other way but tuning into our higher mind, knowing what that's all about.
Great.
I learned a lot through mastering alchemy.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Great. Thank you so much. So we have a few more people. We're going to continue traveling up the Sacramento River. And I'm just looking through, I mean, so much talent here. I do want to say we have some incredible speakers who don't necessarily live here in our watershed, but I do want to welcome and encourage everyone to stay to the end, because we're going to hear from Zen Honeycutt and the incredible coast to coast work that she's doing. We also have Rachel Linden from Green Lifestyles, who actually has a very innovative and new organic landscaping project that she's working on as far as a curriculum. And Dr. Michelle Perro, who actually I met through an event at the state capitol. It was the Roundup rally, talking about the effect of Roundup on our communities. and she's incredibly knowledgeable, and she's a publisher. So we have Dr. Michelle Perot coming up in just a few minutes. So I'm looking at the list here. We're almost to Mount Shasta, and then we're going to go to statewide and national. But I'm going to invite on the call at this point. Okay, bear with me. So much technology. Okay, I want to invite to the call, going to the north, from water flows freely, if I said that right. I had an opportunity to meet with her on one of my trips to Mount Shasta. She has her hands on a lot of things she's doing. And I do want to say right now, Mount Shasta, not only is Crystal Geyser pulling 500 million bottles of water out of the aquifer every day, but also, you know, we want to talk about Shasta Dam and the horrific impacts on the Winnemem-Wintu tribe up in that area. And we want to also just acknowledge Chief Kayleen Sisk and the Run for Salmon event that happens every year. And we also want, you know, the city of Weed recently lost their water rights to the timber company there. So there's a lot of very horrific things that are happening up at the glacial headwaters of Mount Shasta. And I'm going to invite onto our broadcast. And I know she's worked with Bob Saunders, Vicki Gold. So Vicki, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is a beautiful program. I have learned so much from each and every one of the speakers. I've taken lots of notes. I hope you will include all of our contact information and send that out to all of us, not just on the chat room, because there are so many great ideas that have been presented here. And I have to say, like Rahashia, is that right?
Yep.
I am also a generalist, and I find it very hard to focus on one issue. I started with land use issues and environmental issues way back in Thousand Oaks and Ventura County, and working with the Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy, lots of local control issues. And then I moved up here thinking I was through with that. And then suddenly all of these other issues came up, you know, cell towers and water issues and water bottling and water privatization. So at this point, I have to say, you know, there are so many people working very intensely up here on the water issues. There's the water group, and of course the Ecology Center has been for years. And then in Weed, we have a number of people working on the water issues. But what I like to do is back up and, you know, look at the general picture and what we have with the Sacramento River Watershed. And I was thinking this morning that, you know, some of the counties have something like, when they're looking at their general plans, they have a woodland overlay, and that affects how they allow development. And it occurred to me that the thing we really need to work on is perhaps at the federal level, a watershed overlay. And it just should be obvious that rather than dealing with each new project that comes up, each new water extractor, like, you know, the Nestle's and the Coca-Colas and the Crystal Geysers, and have to deal with them one by one. It would be really good to have an overlay that prevents any really polluting extractive industry from anywhere near the tops of the mountains and the watershed, all the way down the whole river within a mile of the river, so that there was no pollution of the groundwater, the surface water, and no deficit and depletion. So unless something like that happens, I mean, they've come up with other projects like the Volcanic Legacy Scenic Byway, which has great effect in, you know, it's really educated people about keeping beautiful vistas, but it's not adhered to. When a project comes before the city or the county, they very easily just reject it and they overlook it and think, oh, well, you know, so it's affecting the scene. But in this case, if it were a watershed overlay and absolutely no polluting industry would be allowed in, and no major extractors putting their product in bottles, then, you know, taking the water, and as Chief Sisk says, not, you know, it's not sacred water when it's put in a plastic bottle. So all of these things have to be dealt with. The reason I invited Dane Wigington to contribute, and as he will on Monday, is that without looking at the geoengineering that's steering the weather, that's causing the droughts, that's actually polluting the land, putting aluminum in our bodies and in the rivers and in the trees, causing more desiccation and then greater fire hazard. If we're not looking at that first, we can't really deal with water. And there's no reason for this, and this planet is full of water. There's no reason for anybody to be without clean, healthy, potable water for drinking and for bathing. And 95% of all medical issues are based upon people not having clean water, clean food. So everything is connected. That's why I've branched out into looking at censorship and, GMOs and 5G, the loss of pollinators due to so many of the reasons that, no one origin can be blamed. You can't say it's just the cell towers. It's just using cell phones. It's just because of the GMOs. And all of the polluters know that. They know that they can't be pointed to as the one cause. But I think this group is a really good starting point for looking at the Sacramento watershed, so that we can, if we could just handle this one as a pilot project and deal with the problems that are created by having Union Pacific, spray Roundup all along the trails to avoid the weeds as an herbicide. If we could get that to stop, it would make a huge difference and be a pilot project for the rest of the watersheds in the world. So I love the idea of using the Sacramento watershed as the starting point for us to collaborate and to pull everybody together, so we're not just dealing with one issue at a time. I have to say, we did get the weed water rights back last week. And
Yay,
so
wow,
that's a
right.
five-year project, and many people were involved. And I think it was because there was so much adverse publicity against Crystal Geyser, for their water bottling, for the greed, and also for Roseburg Forest Products, that I think they finally realized that it was in their best interest to just let the citizens have the water they've enjoyed for the last 115 years. So that's a human right issue. And I think all the things we're discussing fall under human rights. And if we're looking at human rights, clean air, clean water, clean food, those are basic. And all we have to do is look at the military industrial, the military budget, look at the $21 trillion that's missing. There are answers to these problems. We don't need old infrastructure. We can fix everything. We can provide food and water, clean food and water for the whole planet. And we have to ask, who are the people, who are those elite people who are controlling things with their interlocked boards? It is said that there are 500 people and their associated families who are controlling the entire planet. Until we name those people, you have to call them out. And until those people are actually named and the rest of the population educated, this will persist, one area at a time, one developer at a time, one toxic industry at a time. And so I really, truly am grateful for every single person who's participating in this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Vicki. And I love what you said, because part of this broadcast in this whole weekend is we have the source directory as a template of how to create a resilient and regenerative directory off of all other social media platforms that big companies and corporations, people like Facebook and YouTube, are making millions of dollars off us. So, and that project is actually being templated out right now to the Puerto Rico and to other watersheds, saying, hey, this is a template you can use to organize and aggregate all of your people and resources, and who are the do-gooders. It's kind of like if you're an organic farm and you get a certified organic stamp, it's a way that we can kind of vet out the bad players, but also communicate. So I really want to encourage everyone to contact Prayom. Please put up your email about being in the source directory. We can put up photos, videos, and all these things. And I also want to put a big shout out to amigo Bob Contasano, who actually just passed away a few weeks ago in Nevada County. Amigo Bob was the organizer of the farm conference every year. He was one of the people who helped establish certified organic stamps for agriculture, and he passed away from cancer. Unfortunately, here in Nevada County, we suffer from the Nevada Irrigation District, who's our water supplier, to administrate 450 miles of irrigation ditches. And unfortunately, every year they spray those several times with Roundup, and they also put Cutrine, a heavy metal based, copper heavy metal based algicide, into the water, which is absolutely killing our community. I mean, there's no other poetic, sweet way I can tiptoe around the reality of that. Besides Soul of the Delta, that's our next film that's coming out. But we have to take on these issues. And speaking of Roundup and glyphosate, we're going to get right into that in just a minute. We have some really national and international speakers on that, but we're going to wrap up in Mount Shasta. Part of Voices of Water is that we have all the different voices, and one of those voices I want to welcome to the show. I met her recently at our small, during the time of COVID quarantining and shelters in place, we had a very small watershed guardian gathering up at the headwaters of Mount Shasta. There was probably about 50 of us who met up there, including Tess Athena, who's been helping with Water Protector Tour. She's on the call right now. The broadcast is Gaia Warriors, but I want to welcome to the broadcast Unity, calling all the way from Mount Shasta. So thanks for joining the broadcast.
Aloha. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael, Elizabeth Rogers, everyone who is participating. Aloha. I'm actually currently in the area of Santa Monica, and my journey with water is very different. I swam in a cave on the island of Kauai, December 24th, 2010, and had a very spiritual experience with water. And when I came out of the water, the guidance said, now that we have you turned on, here's what we need you to do. So my journey took me around the water, praying around the planet, praying with water for about 8 years nonstop in bare feet, and just allowing the earth to inform, and being an advocate in my own way, climbing many military fences, spraying and placing my womb blood in areas where the guidance was showing me the water vortexes existed, and the water was asking for human contact again, so that we were aligning human consciousness with the consciousness of the planet, the consciousness of water, so that the human species can pass through this transitional phase. I'm very much into the quantum reality. I'm very much into the power of love. I've been a bundle carrier for the Hopi and for the Lakota, Dakota, the Chumash, the Paiute. I started having Indigenous elders come to me in 2013 and asked me to carry bundles to specific sites on the planet during specific astrological alignments to hold the prayer field for this evolution of human consciousness on the planet. So I live in a field of our human potential to transform reality through our thought and through the power of our heart, our vagus nerve. And at Standing Rock, I was given the altar carpet from the sacred fire by the firekeeper. And at that time, the guidance said that the original root peoples were passing the baton back onto the star nations to move us all the way through this transition. And so my water bottle that I had used to move water around the planet for 8 years with many ceremonies with Indigenous and so on, I placed that bottle of water in the Standing Rock altar carpet and was guided to put that back into the earth on August the 8th, the 8/8 line gate of 2018, and restore the human story from his story to our story, which is the story of love and the courage of the human heart to overcome. So I have a very strong sense that humans are coming into this great alignment. It may look chaotic on the surface, but I do believe in the power of the feminine energy that is returning to the consciousness of humans, the consciousness of the human heart. And I'll just add one other thing, that my nature is oracle. And so my journey took me to the belly of the beast on the planet. I was sought out by the big families and the money families. I was sought out by the military families and really went deep into the belly of the beast. And they were seeking information for their own benefit, but all that came through the transmissions was spiritual alignment. And so from the inside out, I watched the systems unplug and fall apart. And I will say for certain, the systems at the center not only are, but have fallen apart. And so when we hold this wave, this vibration of love together, it's programmed in our genetics through the 60th gene that everything can shift in the blink of an eye. And that's my role, is to bring through these transmissions and hold this energy for humans as a reflection to say it's truly possible that everything can shift in the blink of an eye when we align with love. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I am learning so much, and I'm greatly honored to meet such activist involved people doing such amazing things. The neural network that's forming through this gathering today in itself is creating quantum shift on the planet. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And I know you do a lot of organizing in the community up there in Mount Shasta and a lot of different events, and you bring a lot of people together. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. And, we started talking about Roundup and what's happening here in Nevada County, but I do want to say sometimes change can happen very easily. Literally 2 years ago, I was in Mount Shasta. We had our water protector forum at the headwaters, and someone invited the mayor of Mount Shasta to come to that event. Well, after talking with her at the headwaters, probably for maybe just 15 minutes, and I asked Barbara Wagner, why are you spraying Roundup here at the headwaters where people come and fill up their water bottles, which goes into the water bottles? People are going into the water here, and all of that, of course, goes downstream. Well, within 6 to 8 months after a simple conversation, she got the parks to stop spraying the headwaters with Roundup. So change can be very easy to make happen. So I want at this point to talk to Dr. Michelle Pirro, because she is really at the cutting edge, not just as a physician, but as a publisher and a lecturer, and travels really all around, who just put out a book, What's Making Our Kids Sick, if that's correct. I want to bring to the broadcast Dr. Michelle Pirro. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I come to these events and I always get way more than anything I contribute. So that's always like this big surprise to me. Like, wow, here I am, but I'm learning more. And I've also had the good fortune in my life to somehow link up with people who get the job done. And I don't know if it's because I'm setting my intention that way or I'm a doer. I don't really know, but when Michael asks if I want to be involved, I really try and say yes, because I say yes to the people who do. I am a human doing. I have a lot of too much sympathetic overdrive. I need to meditate more. I'm going to contact some of you very shortly. But there's a lot of work to be done. And what is my role? I'm not in the watershed per se. Why am I here? Like, why am I with this amazing group of individuals? And I think I could share with you, I think why I'm here is because I'm a protector of children. And I've been in the health profession since I was 12. I'm no longer 12, I'll tell you that. It's been 5 decades, okay, folks? So 4 decades taking care of kids, couple of decades now in integrative medicine. I've done it all. Emergency, hospitalist, sex assault, I've done it all. I owed a lot of money. Some of it was not because I'm super altruistic, some of it because I had big bills. But nonetheless, the journeys, I've learned a lot. And when I fell into literally the world of GMOs and pesticides, that's where my world shifted. But I don't want to talk about so much about that. I just want to talk about kids and water. And what I want to talk about is that there are three things affecting our kids' health now: the soil, the air, and the water. It's that basic. And if, Michael, you said something, now I've been on the pesticide bandwagon forever, but you mentioned something before, which I think most people don't realize, and that's heavy metals. And what really damages kids' brains are things like mercury, aluminum, and lead. And there is still so much lead in our water. It's hard for me to imagine that since it was identified that lead was a neurotoxin in 1917, that yet we are still battling this issue, trying not to feed our children lead sandwiches and lead juice. So, this is the kind of stuff we're still dealing with. And this is why I can't take my foot off the gas until I become compost. But so water, and I tell all my families now, you've got to filter your water. And to me, that's a crime, that everyone needs to filter their water. The other thing that I'm concerned about is obviously pesticide runoff in water. It doesn't take a lot of Roundup to get us sick, like 0.1 to 0.2 parts per billion can cause disease. And I love my friends in Sacramento, because I think you guys were involved with that oatmeal cookie study in Sacramento, which showed that our state senators, if they eat one oatmeal cookie, they get 220 some odd parts per billion of glyphosate, the main ingredient Roundup. And that just gives me a chuckle every time. I don't know, it's my bizarre New York sense of humor. So, okay, so then what is my role and how can I be of service? Because I'm always looking to be of service. What can I bring to the table? Well, I'm involved with some projects, and I run this website, GMO Science, that's good, wrote a book, that's great. I'm now realigning with Jeffrey Smith. Some of you may know him. He's been a GMO activist for a few decades, and he really got me, he's the one who got me thinking about this when I read his book, Seeds of Deception. And he's been involved with gene editing and gene issue, genetic engineering of microbes. And he's about to release a movie in a few weeks. Don't let the gene out of the bag. And I will be aligning with Jeffrey's work shortly. And I'm doing some other stuff, teaching parents on stuff about integrative health. People can't access people like me. And what I'm trying to do is shift the conversation about teaching our kids about food and their water. It's literally soil and water. And that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm here. And I think so many of these events, Michael, are sharing what we're doing clearly, but networking, these are networking events where I'm going to trigger one of your guys, like, oh, that woman, and I'm going to say, oh, that guy. And we're going to start connecting, because I think we have to change the conversation. I don't want to monopolize too much of time, because I could yak on for a while. So I'm going to shut myself up shortly here so other people can speak. But I want to say one last thing. And I'm not Dr. Doom and Gloom most of the time, but I am going to shake you up a little bit this morning. But I think I'm not saying anything new when I tell you American kids probably are lost health-wise. Oh yeah, I'm not so sure they can come back. I know, find it shocking, and they're not doing well in their health. And I can give you stats that will make your hair gray. Mine kind of is. And you may say, and I'm not going to even share any more stats, since I wrote that book, which is just a couple of years ago, our kids' health is declining further, and the trends are not good and where we're going right now in society. And I won't talk about what's happening. You all know it. And so I'm saying there is an imperative here of really changing their health. And of course, you change kids' health, you change environmental health, you change butterflies' health. The whole thing is linked. We all know that. So I'm saying, for the sake of our kids, I see probably grandparents out there. No offense, folks. We all look like we've been around the block, most of us. So I have to say that we have a moral imperative, and that's my focus. And I am happy to be part of conversations that can move the needle. I don't need any more data, folks. Michael, I don't need any more studies right now. I've got data up to here. What I want to see is action. So thank you for inviting me, and I'm really honored to be part of this forum as well as this weekend. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And if you want to put up any links to your book or any other great work that people could look into, I want to let people know that the Earth Guardians will be coming on in a little bit to join us, and then they will take over. So I don't want people to feel rushed that we have to stop at 1 exactly. We will stop a few minutes afterwards. But since this is being recorded, this will go on as legacy of something what we can all share with people. So I don't want anyone to feel pressured or rush, and I want everyone to feel they have the time to present what they would like to present. So talking about, in the Water Protector Tour, we focus on environmental toxins, pesticides, herbicides, microplastics, the improper pharmaceutical disposal. We talk about household products, landscaping products. We talk about all these things that have effects along with mismanagement and privatization. So I'm kind of just, excuse the pun, getting my feet wet with this over the last few years, but someone who has been deeply involved in it for years. And actually, we're going to bring up a whole group of rock stars right now. One of the founders of non-toxic communities who got schools in Irvine to stop spraying her kids in the schools with Roundup, and it's become a countywide movement. And now she's connected, I know, with Rachel Linden and Zen Honeycutt and many other people in her campaign. I want to welcome from non-toxic communities, Kathleen Halal. So welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really honored to be part of this group today. You are all doing such amazing work. My issue is very much in line with Dr. Pero, as well as Zen and Rachel. We all know each other well. We've been working together for years, supporting one another. And for us, it really, centered around children's health. That's where the issue first came up for me. My own children had autoimmune issues when they were young, and luckily we met brilliant doctors like Dr. Pero and many others, neurologists, therapists. We had an army of doctors who helped our boys to get back better. And one of the major things that we did to improve their diet, that even our very mainstream pediatric neurologists admitted when I asked them about it, was dropping glyphosate out of our diet and going organic. I had spoken with a farmer, Howard Vlieger, from Iowa. Many of you may know him. And he talked about the animal health and how when the animals were they stopped eating glyphosate, they stopped eating GMO feed or feed that had been sprayed with Roundup, that the health of the animals got better as well as their behavior. And so I thought, well, that's great. If it works on pigs, let's try it with our family. And we switched everything in our cupboards, and lo and behold, the kids got better. So after that, I started noticing the little signs around schools where they were spraying Roundup Supermax, which was the very thing that the farmers and scientists I'd met were telling me, they used on crops and that were dangerous. And so I thought to myself, why are they using this around schools? That's probably not a good idea. So I started to get active through my PTA and with our superintendent. And eventually I got a group together. And after the school district agreed to stop using toxic pesticides, the city also agreed. And then I was welcomed onto the mayor's advisory council, worked closely with the mayor to help our program in Irvine be successful by obtaining the proper science and expert training on organic landscaping. And it's been over 6 years now. I just spoke the other day with our landscaping superintendent, and we live in a very highly manicured community with extremely high expectations. I've been up to Mount Shasta and some of the towns you're talking about in Northern California, and our landscape down here is highly, highly manicured. Lots of fields, sports fields, hedges, not one weed kind of situation. It's not very natural. It's not foresty. It's very suburban. But the chemicals that we use in our community do run off straight into the ocean. And so the health of the water and the health of marine life is a very big concern for a lot of these coastal cities. And our aim at non-toxic communities is to help everyone understand that it's a systems-based approach. I hear so many well-meaning activists say we need a Roundup ban, which is only part of the problem. And it can be as much work to get a ban on Roundup done as it is to get communities to pass an organic policy. And really, you have to pay attention to the soil biology and work from the ground up. And you have to drop all synthetic toxins, including Roundup. So when you ask for an organic landscape policy, what happens is Roundup is included in that, and glyphosate is included. In my own neighborhood here where I live in Irvine, my own community, our landscaper said, oh yes, we're not using Roundup anymore, but they use glufosinate, which is a cousin to glyphosate. And that's typically what's happening when communities finally ban Roundup. Sometimes the landscape professionals will use what we call regrettable substitutions. So they'll just substitute another bad product, and you still have to worry about the heavy metals in the soil, the toxic fertilizers, 2,4-D, other choices of herbicides that are really unfortunate. And so at Non-Toxic Communities, what we do is we educate about the need to change the whole system of landscaping in order to protect ourselves and the environment, and also to have more aesthetic success. Irvine looks more beautiful than it ever has. Everything becomes more lush, healthier. And so at Non-Toxic Communities, we are a nonprofit, and we are here to help people find the solutions to, first of all, put a group together to help make the change in their community. And once their community agrees to change, then to put them together with trainers so their whole program can be successful to improve the safety of everyone. And shortly, I may actually be stepping down as I'm vice president currently of Non-Toxic Communities, and I love my work. I love volunteering. I love what I've been doing. But I do have an opportunity to start selling an alternative herbicide, which can replace Roundup in communities. And it's already available in every state in the US outside of California, Washington, and Oregon. And I may be making that leap soon to promote that product, because every little bit helps. And the more activism I do on this subject, the more I find that communities are hesitant to switch over because they feel like they don't have any other tool. So I think I'm going to step down a little. I'll still be a board member, but I may be entering into the commercial sphere in order to help solve the problems that communities are having. But that's it. That's me. That's what I'm doing. And I really thank all of you for the work you're doing, because the runoff into water is a major concern and a major problem of what's going on. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Kathleen. Amazing, amazing. And again, I want to thank all the solutionaries that are on this broadcast today, and the connectivity that we're actually enhancing through this broadcast. And really the whole weekend of the Voices of Water event. I do want to encourage people. Again, tomorrow is Dance for Water. It'll be an all-day global dance event, fun and fundraiser, which will be broadcast to help support the Water Protector Tour project. And then on Monday, World Water Day, the United Nations theme is water as resource, but we're changing that narrative to water as source. And we're going to be broadcasting from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. on Monday, including people like Dane Wigington, 38 million followers worldwide, and a lot of other great presenters, along with members of Indigenous communities. And again, more solutionaries. We're not here just to complain about the problems. We're here to bring solutions and create more connectivity. So on that, I want to introduce one of the people Bob Saunders and I are both have an opportunity to spend time with. She's a traveler. She's a mom. She's doing a lot of great work. And she works with media, but I know she's heavily involved in the organic landscaping curriculum that's coming out. We want to welcome from Green Lifestyles, Rachel Linden. So welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, Michael. Thank you, everyone. I'll try and keep it brief, but I love our planet. I love our earth, and I love water. So here's what I'm going to talk about, piggybacking on what Kathleen had to offer and her work in Irvine, which was amazing, putting together an organic parks program and helping Irvine navigate the very difficult journey of transitioning to organic land care and setting policy, and all the people that it takes to make a program like that in a pioneering position. It's amazing. It lit fire to the conversation about what's happening in our parks and on our playgrounds, our schools, our HOAs, and our yards. And what's happening with our tax dollars? What are we subsidizing? And unfortunately, if you go and you ask your own representative, maybe your mayor or councilman, and you say, well, what are we spraying on our land in our common spaces? They will often tell you that we don't spray anything toxic. We would never spray anything unsafe. We're definitely not harming anyone or the environment. And the interesting thing is they really, and I believe they really believe this. And I mean, across the board, you can ask this very question. And what we do at Non-Toxic Communities, and Michael, you might not even know this, I sit on the board with Kathleen at Non-Toxic Communities. And I run another organization, another nonprofit, Green Lifestyles Network. Okay, and so at Non-Toxic Communities, we advocate for organic land care, okay? And part of what we do is we train advocates. And one of the things we tell them is when you get started, one of the first things you're gonna do is you're going to pull a FOIA request. You're gonna pull a public records request, an Oprah request, whatever it's called in your city or your state. And you're gonna find out what they're using in your town's municipal program. Right? What are they using? I know everyone hates that. You know, we get moms and everybody hates, oh, we hate Roundup or we hate glyphosate. We just want it gone. Ah, okay. All right. Well, how do we make that happen? And then first off, you should know glyphosate, as bad as it is probably not the worst thing ever. And it's only one of possibly, for instance, in my town, I had 2 bulk emails with files so large that they had to break it up into multiple emails because the files were too big to show me everything they were using and when they were using it. And that's unfortunate because I was told no toxic products, nothing unsafe was being used, and we don't use Roundup. And all of those things were untrue. Okay, so not only is it herbicides like Roundup, glyphosate being the active ingredient in Roundup, it's pesticides, rodenticides, fungicides, and vector control. It's toxic fertilizer, synthetic fertilizer. It's sewage sludge being applied, being called fertilizer. All of these things, toxic. Some of them are forever chemicals, right? When we start looking at PFAS, which is a class of chemicals used in plastics, okay, and fire retardants and a lot of other things, packaging and so forth. And those end up in our parks, playgrounds, and what happens there ends up in our water. And when it ends up in a human body, Michelle Perro can echo on this, I'm sure, it doesn't leave your body. These are what's called forever chemicals. And so how do we fight all of those things, right? And look, I was an activist for years in the GMO-free world. You might recognize me as a person that worked on Prop 37 or behind the scenes of Prop 37, putting together Jeffrey Smith's Healthier Eating Tour in 2012. We fought the industry, we fought hard, and unfortunately, it was a lot of fighting. And I love what we're doing now. It's sort of the next evolution in a way, because you can't talk about GMOs without talking about chemicals. And we start talking about chemicals and you want to do something tractionable, right? I don't want to just be angry and slinging hate everywhere. I want to get behind something that works, that's tractionable, right? I don't want to have to fight one chemical at a time, right? We got 70,000, 100,000 chemicals out there. I can't live 1,000 lifetimes long enough to ban all of them. Ban is a higher legal threshold than implementing a standard, which is an easier threshold. Ergo, organic land care standards set forth and paid for by USDA and implemented through nonprofit on the East Coast called NOFA. NOFA is amazing. This is going to go national. These standards are what we use in our parks programs. It's 62 pages. It's, if you pull up the Non-Toxic Communities website, Michael, you'll see all about it. I'll be covering it on Monday in depth. It's how, if you go to the resources page and you
It's on the screen right now too.
Yeah, so they have, NOFA has a land care course where they teach this. It's not for everyone. It's an AOLCP, which means accredited organic land care professional. many people on this webinar have actually taken the program. I've taken it 4 times. I fell in love with it because it's a solution-based system by which we can manage our land, our parks and playgrounds. So instead of my going to a city official and saying, I hate pesticides, I can say, I love these standards. Let's implement them in our park. It's 62 pages on its 6th edition. It's preferred, allowed, and prohibited practices that were written by landscapers who were doing the work for decades. They got together and said, let's put it in writing, what we're doing that works, systems that work. And so that became a program. The USDA funded it. They wrote it. It's taught. It's going national. Give it a little bit of time. It's working out its regional adaptations. And so we advocate for that. And our work at non-toxic communities is really amazing because we take, generally an angry mom and we help arm her and give her what she needs to make a difference in her community. It doesn't have to be a mom. It's all kinds of people, but that's what we do at non-toxic communities. And at Green Lifestyles Network, we take that core of what is to be accomplished at non-toxic communities and we blend it with media. Our hope is to put forward this year a film festival promoting and showing organic land care, all the reasons why it's important and how wonderful it is. Kathleen talked about how great the parks are and how meaningful that is to our water. Our earth is our filtration system. That's how the groundwater works, right? It travels through to our lower levels of storage in our water, like where we have recharge. That land either is a filter or it's a contamination factor. It's either a vector or it's the gift that it should be, which is the kidneys, the filter for our source, right? So when we eliminate all of these toxins in our park and then we add back all of the things that make our soil alive, we end up having a really beautiful natural filtration system and a remediation center for all kinds of things. Chemicals, yes, but we have a carbon sink when we're done. We have water retention instead of water or hydroplaning situation on a crusty bed. We have a live soil that sinks the water. And we'll go more in depth in it on Monday, but I don't want to take up more time. Thank you, Michael, for all you do and all your guests. I'm so privileged to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel Linden. So again, I want people not to be worried. We're going to roll on for a few more minutes. This is being recorded and archived. But I do want to introduce, because you talked about moms, and one of the organizations I know you work with and someone I've actually had the honor to talk with, and I see Steve Nathan smiling here, is from Moms Across America. We want to welcome to the broadcast, and thanks for your patience, Zen Honeycutt. So welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. It's great to see some old friends and make new friends. I'm so grateful for the people who stayed till the end, because I certainly hope that we can all collaborate together. And if there's anything that I say that sparks that, I would be super excited about that. And I've heard a lot from other people that I would like to collaborate with. So I appreciate that as well. So I don't want to go too much into our past and all of that, but if you are really interested in my background and story, I'm sorry, I've got this green screen behind me, but my book is called Unstoppable. If you scroll down, you can see it a little bit more on the website. And that tells our whole history, how we started Moms Across America. We initiated the glyphosate testing thanks to Kathleen and my dear friend Howard Vligger in America, and we were able to get glyphosate testing in our children's urine and tap water and breast milk, which really kind of sparked a lot of international policy change and further testing for glyphosate. And that's not the only chemical, of course, that we talk about, but that one we're using as sort of the launching point, because 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand it. And if we can knock out glyphosate, then we knock out 80% of GMOs, and we draw attention to the toxicity of the food supply. So that's our goal. And what I'd like to make a couple requests of people now that we have this wonderful, beautiful audience. Number one is, whenever you refer to regenerative agriculture, please always use the word organic. always say regenerative organic agriculture, because the big boys are starting to play on this, Cargill and companies like that, and they are co-opting it. And what they're doing is planting cover crops and then encouraging, their suppliers, encouraging them to also spray glyphosate just to kill the cover crop. And that's running off, and that's why I have GMO corn behind me in the river, because it's running off into the riverways and, of course, killing everything it can. So please always use the word regenerative organic, and we're working with some other organizations now to put out a big campaign on this very soon to encourage retailers to switch to more regenerative organic, and so you'll be seeing more about that soon. And then also, we still urge you to work with us and support any of the emails that we send out to ban glyphosate. I know it's not the only chemical that needs to be banned, but it needs to be banned just like DDT and PCBs were. It is one of the largest problems in the world. I don't need to tell you guys all this, but please don't give up. We had over 400,000 something comments for the human health effects for the EPA, collectively as a movement, and we were working really hard to that. But for the endangered species ones, there are only 86,629 comments. So interest in it is waning, and I want to really impress upon people not to let it, to keep going with this until we actually get glyphosate banned. And the next thing is, I'm just putting out to the universe that we are going to we are somehow going to get the EPA to change their policy for final formulation testing. So if this sparks something in somebody out there, that's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm clear will make a difference for farming and for landscaping, for agriculture. If the products that are able to be used are required to have final formulation testing, not just one ingredient like it is in Roundup and all the other chemicals that we use, they approve them all based on one ingredient in that product, not on the final formulation. And that's a fraud being perpetrated on the American public and the world. That must stop. And that, I think, is one of the most effective things that we need to focus on in order to stop all these problems with chemicals in general. And then the last thing is, I'm working on a new book, and it's about solutions. It's about the solutions that will basically prevent the extinction of the human race from the planet, if we can still do anything about this. And so I'm looking for really innovative people that have step-by-step process of what we need to do. Like, if you could sit down, with a president or an EPA head or whatever and tell them, look, this is how we need to get reduce pollution, or how we need to protect water, or how we need to create more jobs for the BIPOC community, or reverse climate change, or whatever that is. I want step-by-step blueprint for them, and I'm going to compile it all together. And so if anybody has any really brilliant and innovative, I'm calling them stupendously courageous and wildly inventive people, I want to be contacted and have them included in the book. So thank you very much to everybody. I appreciate it so much.
Great, thank you again, Zen Honeycutt. I do want to encourage people to stay here for a few more minutes. We have actually what I would consider an elder from Guinea, West Africa on the call, and we're probably going to finish with him because we are going from the Sacramento River Watershed to the statewide, to the national, and to the global. So we only have a couple more people to present, so I appreciate your patience. So right now, even though we started in Sacramento and went to the headwaters, I'm going to invite Barbara Berrigan-Perea if she's ready to present, because Barbara is in the Stockton area and is the founder of Restore the Delta. As we've talked, the Sacramento River Delta proposed tunnel project plans to rob the majority of water out of our watershed, again, for privatization to big petroleum-based agrogarchies like the Resnicks. Also, there's a lot of other players in development, but she's been really doing a lot and really a part of the spearhead movement to resist back to Jerry Brown and now Governor Newsom, and really going back a long time to the proposed Delta water conveyance. She's crowned by 2 sandhill cranes, and we want to welcome to the broadcast. She'll be talking about algae blooms and her work with Restore the Delta. An advocate and activist, and just an amazing person who I've gotten to know over the last year working on the Delta, Soul of the Delta film, Barbara Berrigan-Perea. So welcome, Barbara.
You're very kind, Michael. Thank you very much. And good morning to everyone. The presentations have been fascinating. Barbara Berrigan-Perea, I'm Executive Director with Restore the Delta. I did have Darius Waiters joining me. He is a youth climate water advocate who is part of our new 6-member youth team at Restore the Delta, but he had to leave at 1 sharp because he has midterm work for his classes. So we had to work around that. We come to you at Restore the Delta from occupied Yokuts territory in Stockton. We hope we work with and support groups locally that are working to restore their story and history, basically through ethnic studies programs in our area and through local restoration projects. We recommend that you all, if you have time, watch the 2-part webinar up at Restore the Delta from this summer on our website on the history of communities of color in the Delta. It is really a comprehensive take on the status of the Delta from pre-colonization. In fact, one of our prominent guest speakers for that topic was Melissa Tayaba. All the way to the present, the impacts of environmental health on Delta communities from a result of 120 years of redlining. People always think about the Delta as a rural place, and that is the interior Delta. But the Delta is also, encompasses a large legal statutory area, an urban area that has one of the largest, has the largest environmental justice community population-wise in California. What happens to the Sacramento River impacts us directly because we are the people of the San Joaquin River, one of the most 2 endangered rivers in the United States. The Sacramento River is what keeps our local water systems intact, if not great, as we have failed for decades to save our local river against big agriculture on the San Joaquin Valley side. Without Sacramento River flows, our water systems here fail at the intersection of the San Joaquin and the Sacramento Rivers. Most people know Restore the Delta because we've led the fight against the twin tunnels. We, of course, still oppose the tunnel project because it will never restore the Delta or solve water needs for our neighbors throughout the state. However, we are now more focused locally on projects to improve water quality, mitigate harmful algal blooms, and to create multi-benefit flood prevention programs, because we fear that the Delta is going to be lost before that project is ever built. Those processes are going to go on for years. It will be a long-term struggle. So we're not abandoning it, but we have really gotten to the point that if we don't think we solve local problems, it won't matter. I would also add that I think solving local problems will help put a stop to the tunnel. We have a plan for mitigating and stopping the expansion of harmful algal blooms, which carry dangerous cyanobacteria throughout the Delta. South Stockton has the largest percentage of people who live in an environmental justice community in California. This part of our city has over 130,000 people living at the bottom 96th percentile for environmental health. There is no moving back to the land for our environmental justice communities in the Delta. Our youth are disconnected from our waterways, from lack of public access to being surrounded by contamination in our streams and sloughs that are loaded with selenium, mercury, boron, bromide, salts, and cyanobacteria now. We are the most impacted location also for flood threat with climate change in California. So I want to say thank you right now to the people who are tackling the Roundup problem. It is a contributing cause of harmful algal blooms. And that work and really working on how we're going to create floodplain habitats, levee improvements, create better public access, introduce flows into sloughs that are loaded with cyanobacteria. Those are becoming more and more the focus of our work going forward for the largest estuary on the west coast of the Americas. Darius was going to talk to you from his perspective at the ripe old age of 21. He has gone from growing up fishing and boating on the Delta to avoiding the Delta altogether. And he recently has been giving talks to the State Water Resources Control Board about how the Bay Delta plan to set flow standards has been dragging on longer than he has been alive. We have lots of good laws on the books. We seem to have the absolute failure to actually enforce them in California. And that is the basis for so many of our problems. Our work more and more consequently is working with youth, working with people like Darius, so that they are our focus, because we want to prepare the next generation of protectors of the estuary. They live at ground zero. This is their home. And I think all of us really need to start thinking consciously about how we are going to bring more and more youth into the movement and people of color to carry our work forward. Thank you.
Great. Again, Barbara, thank you so much for your work and also for helping to bring to the forefront the voices of what are typically marginalized communities. So thank you so much. We're about to almost the end of our broadcast, so we have just 2 more people. And again, I want to really thank everyone for their patience. But at this point, we're going to end, I believe, our program. We're going to go to the Condes, who are going to be presenting tomorrow as part of Dance and Drum for Water. We'll be finishing with them. But before we go there, I'm just looking through the list. We're going to go over to Tess. Are you there on video, or are you just a voice?
We can go here. I'm here on video.
Great. There's an echo. There's an echo.
Yeah. It was just because me and Glow are both on at the same time.
Okay, great. So with the time we have, can you both just take a moment, tell us what you're working on together down in LA? I know Glow's visiting from Costa Rica, but would like to learn more just about your Gaia Warriors YouTube and what you and Glow are up to.
Thanks so much for having us. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Glow and I are in LA. We're busy filming a documentary on zero waste, calling Living the Solution. It's about regenerating the earth, and we've been going around filming the zero waste stores around and filming solutions on how to empower people and what changes they can make in their own homes and in their own lives.
Yeah, and currently we are working on the Voices of Water. I'm actually just doing back and sharing this on different live streams currently. But yeah, we are here filming. The last few days have been amazing, just filming with Tess here. And yeah, our mission is really just to protect water and unite these networks across all channels. It's really the time to use our voices as the voice of water, as what is water actually calling us to do for her and what she does for us. I have been working on this video called called Water is Life, which I'm hoping to share by Monday. And it's really exciting to be here and just to hear all the so inspiring voices that are being shared today. And I'm so excited for what's to come next.
Yeah, I think it's a really great opportunity for us all to unite and for all us to share wisdom and resources with each other and to transmute this competition to collaboration and for us to all support each other, because I feel like we all share the same values, we all share the same goals. And if we come together and unite, we can be really, really powerful. So it's a real honor to see all the work that everyone's doing out here today. And it's a real honor to be here. And thank you so much for the service that you're doing for the planet. I really appreciate it.
Great. And you can check out Tess's Gaia Warriors on YouTube. She's starting a channel. One thing I do want to say, typically in this type of advocacy and activism work, it tends to be a lot of older people. And many of us were actually alive during the 60s at the kind of the crescendo of the human rights movement, civil rights, women's rights, the back to the land movement, the health food movement, the anti-war movement. But one of the things I really love and appreciate right now is that both Glow and Tess are being a bridge to help connect the movement into a lot of the millennial communities that are all over the world. Glow usually resides in Paradise in Costa Rica, and I know she's in LA working on this film. But I want to thank them for helping to promote this work and to reach the millennials, to reach the youth that are actually going to be carrying this torch forward. So thank you for helping to not only be involved in this event, but the work that you do in helping to bring more voices of youth into the movement. So thank you for that. Great. So I think we're almost to the end. I think what we're going to do is we have because I really want to just talk about some projects at the end real quick. I do want to say I just secured a small grant. I'm going to put something up for everyone. We want to put together a water protector, steward, water guardian curriculum. One will be at a elementary level, and one will be more, I've talked actually with Sierra College about doing an accredited program. I want to invite all of you to contribute your knowledge. Anyways, the email, the website's up there, the email. And basically, if you just want to chime in with voicesofwater@gmail, because I want to work out clear agreements with all of us in our collaboration of how this work can not only go out, but there could be a conduit, it could be a reservoir of how we can also help to generate funds to support all of our organizations. So right now, I do have someone who's committed to working with the grant to gather the information and all the media to put together a water protector actual curriculum. So that's a project that's happening in real time. And on that, I want to talk about another project that's happening in real time. I want to introduce Lou Casabianca from the Alliance for Resilient Communities, who actually is the publisher and co-founder of Water Protector Magazine. And this is something super exciting because it's an online magazine that we worked on. We thought we would put it out last year, but because of COVID and quarantining and everything else, we went in other directions. But we're on the verge of premiering this magazine. So I believe he's on the call, but I want to bring to the conversation and to share a little bit about Water Protector Magazine, Mr. Lou Casabianca. You got to turn your mic on, Lou.
Hi, Michael.
Great, thank you.
So yes, I mean, basically it's an extension of what's happening in this meeting and specifically dealing with a number of the very topical issues. The glyphosate, the reality of what's going on in the different water protection movements that are happening both locally, bioregionally, and internationally. One of the really interesting things in terms of timing is what's going on with
Somebody's mic is on, not muted, please.
Yeah, bear with me too. I've got a little bit of a throat thing going, but the reality is that every area that deals with reservoirs, fresh water on the planet is in jeopardy. And looking at the Mississippi, Hudson Valley as examples in this country, in addition to what we're dealing with in Northern California. The same is true whether it's the Nile, the Po River in Italy, and seriously the most endangered is the Amazon. And so we'll have in this next issue, or inaugural issue of Water Protector, both the drill down, and there's a 5-minute video, which if there's time before you want to do these other announcements, really looks at our bioregional area and the specifics of what's going on with the Delta Tunnel, that there is actually an environmental report that nails down all of the issues in terms of the amount of salt that'll be added to the water, the damage that'll be done to both wildlife on land as well as fish, to the crops, all the way through to the quality of life issues. Okay, great, good. That's great that you have that there, I think, right? Okay, yeah, that's the issue. So the video is in your chat bar, and it's a direct link to Vimeo.
And Lou, one thing I want to commend you for with this Water Protector magazine, it really does start acknowledging traditional, ecological, and indigenous perspectives. So we are going to be getting submissions from various indigenous communities. And as you speak, I'll continue to scroll through because we're going to talk about, we'll show Sacramento River Watershed to the state, to national, and to global. So this is something if Lou can put his address up in the chat, we can all be in contact with him about editorials and putting content in. So excuse me.
Great, thanks for saying that. I was just about to invite anybody who has thoughts about or an existing article they'd like to contribute, that we are very open to that concept of getting that kind of information out there. So I'll put that in the chat. We're looking at second week of April as a submission date. So we can time the launch of this around and about Earth Day. Also,
so we do have another meeting that we're already late for. Is Mamadou here?
Yes, he is. We were going to, after Lou, we were going to finish with
Yes,
Mamadou. And
yeah, Sekou here. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
Hello,
where you got
Mamadou.
the idea that you had until 2, because it nowhere on the website does it say that.
Okay, well, we'll finish with Lou and then we'll introduce the Condes and that'll wrap us up. Thank you for the heads up, Elizabeth.
great. Well, the link, I'll put the links in the chat window and to turn it over because I believe he's coming from Guinea and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. And let's go ahead and move the agenda along then. Thanks, Michael.
Great, thank you. So that'll about wrap up our Sacramento River Watershed meeting. But since we went to global, I want to just introduce the beginning of the next meeting. And again, thanks for that, Elizabeth. I do want to let people know everything was put up in the chat. Thank you so much. But we have on the call right now, I believe Sekou is in Chicago and Mamadou is in Guinea. And also we have Fanta on the phone, I believe calling from Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to go more into some water work, but I want to thank both of you. And I want to thank you, the Condes, for your presentation tomorrow as part of Dance and Drum for Water, which will be starting at noon. And that's an all-day broadcast. So we can all turn on our sound systems, move our bodies, energetically align with each other in the essence of water and celebrate water. And before we go, I just want to thank right here, if everyone looks, Rachel Trice is on the call. Excuse me, Rachel Tice, and she has been dealing with all of the communications for this event and doing an amazing job. She is absolute my hero for this event, along with Elizabeth. And without her, the clear communications and the integrity couldn't happen. So thank you, one and all. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, and we will definitely be in touch. And again, thank you, Elizabeth, our co-producer, for putting all this together. And everyone have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you tomorrow and Monday for more of Voices of Water. Thank you.